All right, let's set the scene. Picture it. The year 2000. The Y2K bug was a fresh memory, and the US Navy, probably the most powerful organization on the planet, was facing this huge internal problem. And it was a problem of its own making. Its digital backbone was a chaotic, sprawling, and seriously outdated mess. I mean, just think about that question for a second. How do you actually run the business of the US Navy? We're not just talking ships and sailors, right? We're talking about the whole support system, the maintenance depots, the global supply chains, the financial systems, managing the development of new weapons. How on earth do you manage something with that kind of mind-boggling scale? Well, the Navy's answer wasn't just some minor software update. No, they decided to go big. They planned a complete digital revolution. The idea was to basically rip out all the old disconnected systems and plug in a single unified digital nervous system. This was, without a doubt, one of the most ambitious tech projects ever dreamed up. So, to really get why their solution was so revolutionary, you first have to understand just how big the problem was. And trust me, for an organization the size of the Navy, the problem was absolutely colossal. This right here was the heart of the issue. The Navy was running on thousands, literally thousands, of different old-school computer systems. The payroll system over here couldn't talk to the parts ordering system over there. Data was copied and pasted everywhere, which means it was often wrong, and it was never, ever real-time. There was just no single reliable place to get the facts to make big decisions. Okay, so how do you even begin to fix a digital mess that big? Well, they knew they couldn't boil the ocean. They couldn't do it all at once. So instead, they came up with this grand plan to break the whole challenge down into 4 massive, more manageable pillars. And these were the 4 big fronts in their digital war. Each one was a huge piece of the Navy's business. You had regional maintenance for keeping ships in shape, program management for those super complex weapons projects, financial management to, handle the money, and then AvSCM/MM, which is a mouthful, I know. It just means Aviation Supply Chain and Materials Management. The big idea was to rebuild all 4 of these on one single common software platform. This quote right here, it just nails it. It's the perfect analogy. The old Navy was like a body where the left arm had no idea what the right leg was doing. This new system, what's called an Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP system, was designed to be that unified brain and nervous system, connecting every single part in real time. So, what does a digital brain like this actually look like? Let's geek out for a minute and get into the nitty-gritty of how they were going to build this thing. First off, they were realistic. They knew they couldn't just flip a switch and replace everything overnight. So for those old legacy systems that had to stick around for a while, they'd build what's called an interface. Think of it like a scheduled delivery. You get a batch of data dropped off every so often. It's a way to connect, for sure, but it's not instant. The info you're looking at is always a little out of date. Okay, next up is the bolt-on. This is a big step up from an interface. A bolt-on is a separate, specialized program, maybe for super advanced logistics or something, but it's designed from the get-go to work perfectly with the main system. And here's the key. They share the same database. That means the data is real-time, it's connected, it's good to go. And that brings us to the ultimate goal, the holy grail, integrated. This is the dream state. It's the seamless flow of information where every single application, whether it's part of the core software or a fancy bolt-on, is reading from and writing to the exact same database. No more copies, no more delays, just one single source of truth for everybody. Now this slide, this really puts the sheer ambition of this thing into perspective. This is the SAP module matrix. Down the left, you've got all the different business functions, finance, HR, maintenance, you name it. And across the top are those 4 big programs we talked about. See all those X's? Every single one of them represents a plan to use one piece of software, SAP, to run a critical part of the Navy's business. The scale is just breathtaking. But here's the thing. Building a system this complicated, it's not just a technical problem. It's a human problem. And this one required an absolutely epic, coordinated effort from thousands and thousands of people. You can forget about a small, nimble startup team. This thing required a literal army. The original documents have these unbelievably complex org charts with hundreds of different roles and teams and committees. And they all had to work together perfectly across totally different corporate cultures and strict military chains of command. And it wasn't just a Navy project, not by a long shot. It was this massive coalition of some of the biggest names in tech and consulting at the time. I mean, look at this list. IBM, KPMG, PwC, EDS, each one was in charge of one of the four main pillars. And then you had giants like SAP providing the software and Lockheed Martin and SAIC backing them up. This was a truly monumental public-private partnership. So they've got the plan, they've got the tech, they've got this army of people all lined up. The big question is, how long is this all going to take? Well, the timelines tell a story of just staggering long-term commitment. So let's start small. Here's the initial plan for just one of the four pillars, regional maintenance. Back in July of 2000, they mapped out a timeline that was roughly 2 years from start to finish. Seems ambitious, sure, but, kind of manageable. But at the exact same time, the program management pilot was running on its own timeline, and that one stretched out across 3 years. So you can already start to see how these huge, multi-year projects were beginning to stack up and overlap. And then you see this slide. This is where the true scope really hits you. That initial 2-year plan? Yeah, that was just for the pilot. The full rollout for regional maintenance alone was scheduled in phases that stretched over 6 years, and probably even longer. The key thing to realize here is that this was never meant to be a quick win. It was always planned as a long, phased-in transformation. And really, that's the main takeaway from all this. This was never just about installing some new software. It was about fundamentally changing the way an institution as enormous and complex as the U.S. Navy actually works. It was never going to be a sprint. It was always going to be a marathon, because changing how people work is 1,000 times harder than changing a line of code. So it all leaves us with this one final, really big question. When you look back at this monumental effort from the year 2000, the grand plan, the incredible tech, the army of people, and the decade-long timelines, what does it really take to transform an organization that's on the scale of a global superpower?